stating that I'm as conspiratorial as feck. I don't trust politicians, I don't trust corporations, I don't trust mass media, and I am open to a conspiracy theory just because it's a conspiracy theory, because I know that this world is run by corrupt individuals and organizations. And I also know the term conspiracy theorist was invented by the CIA when people started sniffing around the JFK thing too much. Now, having said that, there is a general assumption among society that people who are into conspiracy theories are generally paranoid individuals. They're paranoid of everything. They think every single thing is to be fearful of, and that's not true at all. It's not true at all, for the simple reason that while many people who fall into the conspiratorial world are, I wouldn't say paranoid. I've met very few people in the conspiracy field that are paranoid in terms of this, they're like that kind of thing. They're more cautious and they're more kind of like wary. But the majority of them have happy lives. They're not like messed up by it. They're normal, productive people who live, families and everything. They're just like me. They have an interest in conspiratorial ideas. To me, it's very entertaining. I find that when I uncover conspiracies, whatever, it's not out of fear or paranoia. It's actually fun for me. It's actually a lot of fun. Now, being an unashamed conspiracy theorist, something I'm actually quite proud of. I'm quite proud of it. I'd rather be that than someone who believes everything the government does or says or does, or politicians or corporations, are as pure as the driven snow. They're the ones who are like have mental issues. Actually, unconditional trust for corporations and big systems. They're the ones with the problem. You wonder what kind of like childhoods they must have been incredibly pampered by their mammies and daddies, and had no actual issues during childhood. Everything must have been taken care of for them. That the big bad world never encroached on their reality. So therefore, they think that the rest of their lives is living in, Teletubby land. But those of us who've lived a life, a full life, are very much aware that conspiracies do exist and they are real. You'll find that that's just a fact because we've encountered them firsthand. Usually, like someone like me, the world I grew up in, I mean, the class system wasn't a conspiracy theory. To me, it was a fact. I had to change my address when I started leaving Ballymun, applying to go to colleges even. I had to change my address to a relative's address because as soon as they saw Ballymun Dublin 7 on your letterhead or your CV, you were instantly disqualified. You were a drug addict, a criminal. And that's why I believe in conspiracy theories, because I see the human race for what they actually are. So, now, bearing that in mind, one of the problems with people who are conspiratorially minded is they're too trusting. Now, that may sound odd to hear for the first time, and I'll tell you why. They're too trusting of conspiracies. They show no discernment. Now, I'll give you an example this week of, we had some beautiful auroras over the country, and over the world actually, north and south. And of course, the first thing you hear them saying is HAARP. Now, they post all these pictures, these little memes, they post all these things, and they're absolutely convinced that HAARP caused the aurora. And then you ask them why, and they say, oh, because this meme says so. But they don't have the knowledge to back up what they're saying. And this is very important if you're entering into this world of conspiracy. You better damn make sure you know what you're talking about to back it up. That's why I would say I discount huge numbers of conspiracies, because there's nothing behind them. Nothing at all. There are things like MK Ultra, it's true. It came out in congressional reports. We know that's real. And absolutely the JFK was assassinated by the CIA, we've no doubt about that. But you can't believe all of them, because when you believe all of them, it's dangerous. It's dangerous for your mental health, because it prevents you from focusing on things. Now, I'll give the HAARP thing as an example. I have yet to be convinced that HAARP is a real thing. Now, I'm now seeing, 10,000 bongs now flying out of people's mouths, and the 15th spliff of the day going that direction. Woo! Let me tell you, I have a longer history with this stuff than many of you people do. You know, I'm here longer than the YouTube videos you've been watching for a few years, in terms of looking at this stuff, going right back to my teens. I first heard about HAARP in the early 90s, maybe late 80s, and it was in Mother Jones magazine. Now, Mother Jones magazine is a hippie, pretend radical magazine, controlled opposition. You know, it writes about, like, it'd be like Democracy Now, that kind of thing. It pretends to be, or the Young Turks, it pretends to be counterculture, but it's actually pro-culture. It's just giving some people this. It's catering to suspicion. Hey man, the system, man, you know, that kind of thing. But it's really, it's clearly, it's like Rolling Stone magazine. It's purely an organ of the CIA, or Newsweek at Time, and the rest of them. Now, USA Today newspaper especially, they're all run by the CIA. So, Mother Jones magazine blows the thing. They had a thing like the list of the top banned things in the world this year that the mainstream media didn't cover. Now, just by saying that the mainstream media doesn't cover it, presents this thing with a kind of a cachet of, well, why are they putting it down? But that's how the CIA work. They deliberately say these things, so you go, it must be real because they banned it from MSM. See, that's part of the traps as well. So it featured what HAARP is. This, you know, this basically this array, this massive dish array that's in Alaska that they don't know what it's for, but it uses very, very high frequency waves to affect the upper atmosphere. And you think to yourself, well, that's like pretty bad. Now, initially it was sold as perhaps, now they didn't know for sure because it was secret, perhaps a thing for tracking or communicating to submarines around the world during the Cold War. Now, this then slowly evolved over the years into a thing that could cause a weather weapon machine. Now, there's lots of problems with this. Firstly, well, let's talk about the Aurora thing. Let's get the Aurora thing out at the beginning. If you think that the Auroras were caused by a HAARP, you're really making a fool of yourself, and you're leaving yourself wide open to be attacked. The Auroras are caused by flares from the sun, right? So they're naturally occurring, and they're measured by astronomy places and weather places all over the world. And even, you know, amateurs can measure a solar flare. There's ways to do it. So the solar flare comes off, and then it hits the Earth. And that's what causes the ionization up on top of the poles that makes the auroras, right? So that's a colossal amount of energy to do that. There probably isn't enough energy on the whole Earth to create an aurora. There probably has never been enough energy in the history of the human race to create an aurora. Auroras are natural. They're created by the sun. HAARP would have to go and do something to the sun. Have you ever seen a picture of the Earth, how small the Earth is next to the sun, and how big a solar flare is compared to the Earth? Case closed. So that's not caused by that, okay? And now, if there was no X-flares from the sun and the auroras happened, you could say possibly, you know, well, there's something funny going on, okay? You see, this is the problem with conspiracy theorists. They think they have all the answers based on a meme or a video. You have to have your facts. Now, I'm blessed with the fact that I do have a background in electronic engineering, so I understand how power works. That's why I know this Satirist bullshit of electricity being collected by church spires is bollocks. You can't collect power that way. Not electromagnetic power. You can collect diamagnetic and energy. That's a different thing altogether. That's not the same thing as electrical power. And that's kind of probably an interesting subject all by itself, but that's often a different world, okay? Now, and paramagnetic energy as well. So, Auroras were created by flares from the sun, nothing to do with anything on Earth. And we know that because of independent measurements on or independent reporting of the flares from the solar flares of the sun that go right back to the Carrington event that wiped out all the power systems in the early United States. Now, so what about, so it didn't affect that. It doesn't have the power. Does HAARP cause the hurricanes, like we had the terrible hurricanes we've had in the, in the Gulf of Mexico that have hit the, highly unlikely. It makes no sense. If you have a weapon that could take out Russia, destroy its grain harvest, that could pour the Pacific on top of North Korea, that could destroy China just by weather, why are you hitting a bunch of hillbillies in the Appalachian Mountains? Why are you doing it? It makes no sense. It's like someone said to me recently, oh, HAARP attacked the Wellington, earthquake. They attacked in New Zealand. They attacked it with HAARP. Why would the United States attack a friendly Mickey Mouse nation like New Zealand when they should have the power to attack Russia, Iran? They could make the snows melt in the mountains of Iran and cause massive flooding. They could destroy the Russian grain harvest. They could destroy China. They could destroy North Korea, an easy one. Just send some typhoons or whatever into North Korea. It's not true. It's not real. And again, the reason why it's not real is they don't have the power. In order to do that, and if that thing was real, HAARP was real, it would have to have a colossal power station built right next to it. It doesn't. It's on the regular grid. So there you go. I can't possibly do that. Do you know how much energy is needed to make a hurricane? Even a small one? So how do you even... And then they go on about directed energy weapons. This all started with the woman Judy Woods, who's, funny enough, vanished from the scene, interesting enough, claiming that direct energy measurements causes dustification. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to manipulate energy, to generate... See, we live in an age where people don't... It's just like they switch on the electric kettle and it just happens. They go to a soccer stadium and the floodlights come on, it just happens. They get on a train, electric train, it just happens. I don't think they fully understand the enormous amount of effort is needed to create energy, to store energy and to transmit energy. It's absolutely colossal. It's massive. Now, direct energy weapons would have been very similar to what, another thing, the truthers have a religiosity towards Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla was basically trying to do the same thing. The idea was to fill the world full of electricity and find a way to tap into it, but also use it as a death weapon, as a control weapon. That's where a lot of this comes from. A lot of these things, and I'm convinced HAARP is one of them, were Cold War propaganda. I think the Americans put the HAARP thing out there through the sort of like radical underground, Mother Jones and so on, to disseminate it back towards the Soviets, to pretend America had these enormous weather weapons. And they didn't. There was some ruse. The Russians didn't care. Now, if this technology exists, why aren't the Russians using it? Why aren't the American, the Chinese and all the others using it? It doesn't exist. It's just all made up. Now, people will say, oh, well, I've seen patents for weather modification. Weather modification has been going back to like 200 years. 200 years ago, they were doing they were trying weather modification by firing crystals into clouds. This has been going on forever. A patent for a weather modification device, it means nothing. It's just a patent. It doesn't mean it's been put in the process. This is why Nikola Tesla went bankrupt, actually. He spent all his money on patents. A patent is just to say, I own it, I came up with the idea, and if anyone tries to steal it, it's mine. That's all that means. It doesn't mean it was ever built. It doesn't ever mean it was ever put in the process. It just means that, so get this thing out of your head that HAARP caused all this stuff, because you don't know enough. Like, I would never get involved in something, like, for instance, the needlecraft, right? People say, okay, Thomas, you're not a virologist or you're not a chemist. How did you know that the needlecraft was wrong? Because I actually read their own documents on it telling me it was wrong, that it was dangerous. And also, we have a precedent here, thalidomide. And it wasn't a case that I said it was wrong or it doesn't work. It was a case of I said, I don't trust it. That's all. And that was the end of it. I walked away. I don't trust it. I don't trust it. It's like asking, it's like asking a woman out for a date. If she says no the first time, she's always going to say no. So don't bother the second time. Just go find someone else. That's the way it is. Just don't waste your energy. So that's why I just came by the fourth or fifth page of Google, researching it, what these needlecraft, mother hydrate baby nano thingies are, was enough for me to say that I'm not putting that thing in my body. No way am I putting that in my body. And that was it. That was all I had. Am I an expert in these things? No. So if you're going to be, if you're going to blast things about HAARP caused the auroras or caused the hurricanes all over your wall, and then you're worried then you want to know why your family or your friends are all like, what is this shit? I don't talk to you anymore. Because you don't have the knowledge to actually back up what you're claiming. It's like the moon landing hoax. There are people out there who think the moon landing didn't happen and then will post a picture of the Apollo 11 LEM, the actual lunar module, and say, how did this thing fly from Earth to the moon and back? When even the most rudimentary look at it will show you that thing was brought in a container inside the Saturn V rocket. It didn't fly to the moon and back. All it did was fly from lunar orbit down to the moon and back, and part of it came back. But they don't even check that. Or how did they get the lunar boogie onto the LEM? It was strapped on the outside like a folded bicycle. Oh, and they don't even look. This is so important. You have to. The reason why you're a fucking idiot in front of your family and friends is you post these memes and you post these things and you don't check if they're true or not. And if you don't know for a fact if it's true or not, then don't post it. Just don't post it. That's just how it is. I don't. I am a conspiracy theorist, but I believe in very few conspiracies. The rest of them I know, I can't be bothered with that, or I know it's not true. Things like Satirist and the flat earth is all bollocks from instantaneously. It's all bollocks, and so is the whole, the freeman of the land stuff. It's instantaneous debunked. But that's it. The rest, I'm open to it. Yeah, it might be true. Could be true. For instance, there's a Satirist thing. They all think that these super cities existed all over the world that were powered on Tesla energy that came from spires in buildings. Now, the old adage that there's always some little truth to a conspiracy. The reason why all those American cities were gone, well, lots of them were not actually even cities. They were world fairs, and they were displays of craftsmanship. They were made of plaster. They weren't even real buildings. They were like stage sets. But that's one thing. But the main reason you have all these cities in America that were destroyed, and these beautiful buildings, like Kansas City was completely devastated, was because of the interstate highway program. The American government, and this is a conspiracy, with the Rockefellers and Standard Oil and all these people, they destroyed all the interurban rail systems in America. The American ones had a phenomenal public transport rail system, not just train travel, but also things called interurbans, which were like light rail that went into the countryside and everything. And the Standard Oil and Goodyear tires started buying them all up and deliberately not investing into them, and they were destroyed. At the same time, they built the interstate commerce, the interstate highways. Now, if you saw some of the photographs of the damage that the interstate highways have done to cities like Kansas City, a once beautiful American Beaux Arts city, and they plowed a highway right through the middle of it, destroying thousands of historic buildings. See, it's one Americans have, and at the same time, Americans went to the suburbs because of white flight. Suddenly, you have a whole people going that they live in somewhere like suburban Detroit or anywhere, and they see a photograph of these incredible buildings at the turn of the 20th century in Detroit, and then they say, "What happened to them?" Then they go online and they see Satirist and there was mud floods and all this. No. It was the highways that destroyed it. Pure automotive greed. And it was a conspiracy. It absolutely was. The oil and car companies got together and they got with the US federal government and they built these. Now, there's nothing wrong with building highways because they actually do help commerce a lot. They make countries smaller. But that's what really happened. That's why you don't have railroads, passenger service in huge parts of America anymore. Now, we have highways and railroads in Europe, but there's population density issues and all kinds of things like that. It's different. So, but you have to be discerning. I can't express this enough. If don't As soon as you hear something that you think might be a conspiracy, get the facts behind it. Do some checking. Is this true? Look at both sides and then make the point. This week, there are loads of people I know that have just lost all their family and friends because they've been posting memes about HAARP and weather modification. Now, again, I'm going to have loads of them in comments go, well, weather modification is true. Yes, I know it's true. You know, just like I know space travel is true, but that doesn't mean we've been to Alpha Centauri. Just because one element of it is true doesn't mean make the whole thing real. It doesn't make directed energies and making auroras. We've got to be so careful with this stuff. You will find by doing this, not only will you cause less stress for yourself, but your confidence will grow. And that's the real point of this video. If you look into conspiracies in an intelligent way, and you are pretty sure this is what it is, not a meme that someone shared that appeal to your infantile emotions, you will find that your self-confidence in these things will grow enormously and your charisma will grow. So if someone asks you, like, say, I'll give you an example. Let's say, if someone says to you, well, there was a conspiracy to destroy all the beautiful cities in America, and they'd go, oh, it's a terrible bullshit. No, no, no. It was called the Highway Program, and they plowed through all the cities. They destroyed them. It's one of the most disgraceful things. And it was the people like the Rockefellers. Oh, I heard about them. Did you ever hear about what happened to the transit systems? Well, oh, I think that's true. They broke. Yep, they deliberately wrecked them on purpose, and they were fined $1 by the U.S. government for doing it. And they made Americans dependent on cars and created the suburbs for that reason. And they played on things on white flight. And then they go, yeah, that's really interesting. As opposed to going, and then they have the HAARP, and they blow the HAARP up, and the HAARP blows up, and now the sky blows up, and the air goes, be very, very discerning. And you'll find that not only will you win neutral people over, but your own charisma will grow. Take care. Sanguinosis. Love you all.